And as far as things happen all throughout basic, that's mostly it. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll go over some of the day-to-day stuff, like how the day-to-day process worked in Red Phase. So as I mentioned earlier, you wake up at 0500. First thing that happens is, now you have to make your bunk and all that too, by the way. Like, there's no foot lockers, it's wall lockers, and everything is specifically designated as to where you put it. You had to have all your shit, you know, folded nicely and all that. And the drill sergeants would actually have you, sometimes for inspections and all that, randomly, they would have you open up your locker and check your shit to make sure it was all in order. If anything was out of order, then you were fucked. And as soon as you got out of bed, you had to make your bed, and it had to be pristine looking. I actually fucked up there for the first few days, for about the first week. The actual design of the bed I got right, but like there was a certain technique in order to pulling it tight. Like, you had to pull it tight, the blankets and all that. And I had trouble doing that. Like, there would always be some slack left over for the first like week until I learned how to properly do the technique. And so I would get shit from my bunk, and it would lead to problems. So not only was my last name a contentious issue, but also the fact that my bunk wasn't quite as tightened as it was supposed to be. Now, I'll go in and I'll tell you a story about that real quick too. I got another story for you here. So I think it was day 4, day 5. It was at some point during week 1. We were all standing there in a position of attention in front of our bunks, and it was the early morning, and Drill Sergeant Core was walking around, inspecting shit. He goes over to my bunk. I was on the top bunk. He kind of looked at it. I didn't see what he was doing, but he spent an abnormal amount of time on my bunk. He goes up to me, he gets right in my face again like he did on day 0, and he goes, "Private fuckhead!" I didn't answer him actually. Not right then. I was gonna answer. He didn't give me time to. But he goes, "Private fuckhead. Are you?" He goes, "Are you a fucking faggot?" Oh, one thing. I'm gonna digress again. One thing that they were allowed to do back then is they were allowed to use homophobic slurs as much as they wanted to. In fact, there was one guy named Drill Sergeant Adams. He wasn't my NCO, he wasn't my drill sergeant, but he actually joined the cycle late, but he was somebody else's platoon. But Drill Sergeant Adams, he was a skinny Asian guy. This man's favorite words were fuck and cocksucker. And he would just call anything. He'd go, "Hey, fucking private," because he'd go, "Hey, fucking private, get your fucking ass on the fucking cocksucking monkey bars," or something like that. He'd call you a private fucker. He might call you a private cocksucker. He'd look at a female soldier and be like, "Hey, private cocksucker, get down here." And he wasn't the only one. There were some homophobic slurs used every there and now. I mean, cocksucker isn't really a homophobic slur, but the way he used it, I guess, could be interpreted as it sort of, like offensive to the homosexuals. I almost guarantee you that nowadays they can't do that anymore. In 2020, I'm 99% certain that drill sergeants can't call you a faggot or a cocksucker anymore. Or a queer or whatever. Back when I was doing it, they could. The only thing that was off limits verbally, the only thing that was off limits was racial slurs. So you could call a private a queer or a faggot all day long, but like a drill sergeant could sit there and say, "Hey, run faster, you fucking," do that. Forgive me for my use of the N-word. They couldn't do that, So, not even when I was in. In fact, I'm not gonna mention it right now, but there's another story I have that particularly pertains to the word nigger, and I'm only using it right now because it's in context with what happened. There's a story down the line. This happened in White Phase, so I won't go into this until the White Phase video, but there is something that happened actually concerning racial slurs. Anyway, so he goes, "Private fuckhead, are you?" Sorry if I'm all over the place again. He goes, "Private fuckhead, are you a fucking faggot?" I go, "No, drill sergeant." He goes, "Oh, really, Private? Cause your bunk, it looks like a fucking scrotum. And that tells me that you like fucking scrotums, which means you like fucking dick. Do you like fucking dicks? Do you like riding cock, Private fucking fuckhead?" I go, "No, drill sergeant." And it goes on like this for a little bit, and then we got punished for it. But the issue is that there was one corner of my bunk that was a little bit wrinkly. One thing, so I hadn't learned the technique yet, and so and he did, and that sentence, "Private, your bunk looks like a fucking scrotum." He said that verbatim. So anyway, but the way that red phase overall went was you'd wake up in the morning. You'd have 5 minutes from the time you woke up to get downstairs in formation. That 5 minutes includes, making your bunk and all that kind of shit. And then PT would start at 5:30. PT, I actually don't remember when the fuck PT ended. But after PT, you'd go up, take showers, do some hygienic shit, and then you'd go ahead and you'd go to breakfast. You may be wondering to yourself right now, if you woke up at 0500 and you had to be downstairs 5 minutes later, then how does PT start at 5:30? I'll tell you how. Because for 25 minutes, they make you stand in formation and do absolutely nothing. It's a concept called hurry up and wait. And it's fucking stupid. And it's only there in order to discipline you into the hurry up and wait lifestyle. But that's it. And then once breakfast was done, and I already went over the procedure for that. Once breakfast was done, you would go out and do some sort of physical thing. Because the main point of red phase, what we did there, was it was like physical shit, like obstacle courses and stuff like that, or like learning things like land nav, which is land navigation. Let's say you'd learn how to use a compass, and then you'd ruck march out there to a certain land navigation area, and then you'd actually fucking do it. Like they teach you things and you do them. Another thing I forgot to mention was hand-to-hand combat. You also learn hand-to-hand combat during this point in time in a class sort of deal called combatives training. And even in the middle, towards the end of that training, you even go against other platoons in the company, competing for hand-to-hand combat type shit. Honestly, the actual competition was pretty, dare I say, fun. And you do physical shit. That's what red phase is all about. And then, drill sergeants would get up in your face, yell at you, cuss at you. The whole 9 yards. One thing you hear a lot is half right face, front leaning restitution move. That's one thing you hear all the time over there. Because that's the push-up position. That's when you start getting there. Now, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it, honestly. Like, you go to dinner, you'd have lunch. Usually while you were out training, you'd have lunch, so you'd have an MRE. Very rarely, at least in red phase, did we have lunch at the DFAC. Very rarely, because we were out doing other shit. And then I'd say about half of we'd usually have breakfast at the DFAC. We'd almost never have lunch there, and then dinner was about 50-50. And then that was about it. And then that's the general way that red phase went. And you know what? There's one more thing actually that I forgot to mention, and this happens all throughout basic, is Sundays. Sundays were slightly different. Believe it or not, in basic, you do get terms of free time. And there's even a name for free time, but I don't remember what it is anymore. Unbelievable, I know. But so, now, when you sign up, you lose certain rights, such as the right to free speech. You don't have free speech anymore. Not in that life. One you do have, though, is the freedom of, you can exercise religion. And Sunday mornings, some people might want to go to church. So the way Sunday mornings went was different. You did PT, and in fact, on Sunday mornings, you would actually be allowed to sleep in a half hour late. Wake up time wasn't until 5:30. And then at 5:30, we would do a shortened PT session, and then we would do the showers and all that, and then we would get breakfast. After breakfast, we were taken to the Bay areas, and then between breakfast and lunch was free time to basically, I guess, whatever we wanted. Keep in mind that whatever you wanted is a very limited scope, because we didn't have Xboxes, we didn't have our phones, we didn't have PlayStation, we didn't have Facebook. Like, anything you did was productive. Like, honestly, it really was. Like, there were a lot of people who would, like, learn new shit, or, you know, they would try to better themselves as far as being in basic goes. Other people who were actually religious, or, you know, pious people, they would actually go and go to church. That was their thing. So you may be asking yourself, what did I do during this time? Well, what I did, now, when you're in basic, you get 3 phone calls. You get a phone call every phase. Now, it's important for the mind to talk to people, though, that you're used to talking to. And so what they do is you'll write and receive letters. The drill sergeants give you letters every week. And yes, my dad in particular did write me letters. And not gonna lie, dude, like, reading my dad's letters was actually very important to me at the time. It really was. Like, in basic, it's very, very, very important just for your mental health. It's salubrious for you to sit there and read letters from your people. And the phone calls is even more important, dude. That fucking phone call, holy shit. Like, I don't know if this is how fucking people in prison feel, but I'll tell you what, dude, that phone call means the fucking world. And you only get one every 3 weeks. So anyway, what I would do with that free time is I would write my dad a letter, I'd send the letter off, and then I would just do laundry. And then when I was doing laundry, I would talk to some of the people in my platoon, the clique that I was associated with, mind you, you know. We would talk about shit, you know, the best way to do shit, whatever else have you may not. And then once that was all done, I would put away my laundry when it was all done, you know, nice and rolled up and shit the way it's supposed to be. And then by the time that was all done, it would be time for lunch. Then after lunch, you get back to training as usual. Now, there were 2 more things that happened both one time in basic. One was weapons I'll get that in a minute. One was the PT test. We had 3 PT tests in basic. One in the first 3 weeks, one in the second 3 weeks, one in the last 3 weeks. I think the last one was in blue phase, I believe. First 2 PT tests in both red and white phase I failed. I'll tell you right now, I failed both of those ones. I didn't pass until the 3rd one, which is, now keep in mind though, the 3rd PT test in basic is the only one that actually matters. If you fail the first 2, it doesn't matter. The drill sergeants will give you shit for it, but they'll give you shit for anything under the sun, because it's basic. But so we did a PT test, I failed it. Now what does the PT test consist of exactly? Well, it consists of push-ups, sit-ups, and a run. For my age at the time, I don't know what it would be now, but I was 18 at the time. For my age and all that, I had to do 42 push-ups in 2 minutes. I had to do 56 sit-ups, I believe, in 2 minutes. And then I had to get 15 minutes and 56 seconds or a better time during a 2-mile run. And I didn't accomplish all 3 of those feats until the 3rd time around. Another thing we had to do was weapons qualification. So let me go ahead and go into weapons real quick. Firearms meaning. Now, with the exception of like 1 or 2 days, just to make sure that we could actually, you know, accurately fire, just to make sure M4s were lollipopped, and then the weapons qualifications. I'll explain lollipop in a minute. But with the exception of lollipopping and the weapons qualification for one time, that took like 2 days only, we didn't do anything with firearms. But we had to have them at all times. So let me go into the firearms part of this real quick. So as far as the firearms go, we had M4s. On day 2, and that's day 2, meaning like day 0, day 1, day 2. So some people might consider it day 3. But on day 2, we were assigned our M4s. And they had 2, we pulled them out of the arms room, they had 2 different designations on them. they had serial numbers. The serial numbers were like what really keeps track of the firearms themselves. They were engraved into the left side of the weapons. They were it was an 8-digit number. I remember the first 2 digits. It was 66. I don't remember the rest of them beyond that. And then what we also had, for the sake of our company, because our company was designated its own batch of fucking M4s, we had a buttstock number. The buttstock number was not like engraved in it. It was on the buttstock, of course, and it was a 3-digit number. I remember mine. Mine was 139. And it was a piece of paper that was taped with like Scotch tape onto the buttstock. And then, and yes, we were even told to name our M4s. I named my M4 Stella. Why I named it Stella? Fuck if I know. It just came to me at the time. So, but we ended up learning how M4s worked. We got a sling with it and everything. Actually, well, did we get a sling? We didn't get a sling until White Phase, actually. White Phase, we got a sling. Because White Phase is when firearm stuff starts, but that's for another video. So we got our M4s day 2. With, like I said, with the exception of lollipopping and qualifications, we didn't use them. We had to have them at all times. So we would just carry around these M4s with it at all times. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, I was wrong. No, we did get our slings right away. It wasn't until White Phase. No. White Phase is when we first got other stuff. I apologize. I confused slings with something else. Because my brain was just going crazy right now. Like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Okay, slings you get right away. Other shit you get in White Phase. I was thinking of other shit. I apologize. Slings you get right away. So you when you go to the DFAC even, you have to put the M4 around your shoulder or whatever, but you have to, the M4 stays with you at all times, unless it's on your bunk because you're asleep. And yes, you even had to do push-ups and shit with an M4. How do you do push-ups with an M4, you may ask? Well, I would show it to you. Okay, so, okay, get in this position. Visualize yourself holding like an M4, right? With your position and everything. So what you do is you roll your hands so that your palms are facing down and your thumbs are going to be up, and imagine that an M4 is laid across the top, like the back of your hands. From there, lean forward, go down to the ground, and then put your hands on the floor or ground, wherever the fuck you are. And so you'll see that your M4, the M4 is laying nicely across the top back part of your hands, and you can do push-ups like that. That's how we did the push-ups. And then we would get up and then move on through. I hope that makes sense. It'll probably make more sense if you actually did do that. And now as far as lollipopping and weapons qualification goes, I'm not going to go in depth into weapons qualifications until White Phase, because that's when we started doing firearm shit. So I'll save the weapons qualifications for the White Phase shit. But I'll tell you about lollipopping. So we didn't use the iron sights. We used a CCO sight, which is a close combat optic sight. Think of it as the red dot sight in Rainbow Six Siege. It was a red dot sight. So that red dot sight can move around within the picture of the sight itself. It's not necessarily in the center, it can move around. So what lollipopping means, and this is for iron sights or any sort of electric sight that takes batteries. Now, you can be looking dead center at a target. Let's say you're looking at a target 50 yards away. You can have your reticle dead center on that target and shoot and still miss. If that happens, it's because your sights aren't lollipopped. Because if your sights are giving you the wrong sight picture, then you're gonna miss. So the way you lollipop is that you aim at a target, you shoot 2 or 3 times, and you see where the bullets landed. So let's say you're aiming at a circle, right? Like a black dot. And let's say you shoot 3 times and all 3 of those shots are grouped to the up and right of where that circle is that you're shooting at, right? So what you would do is you would adjust your sights, whether it's a CCO sight or whatever electric sight of your choice, or whether it's iron sights, you would adjust those sights a few digits, let's say 2 or 3 digits down and then to the left. And then what you'll do is you shoot another 3 shots and then see where those land. And then you keep doing that until you hit the target. Once you can consistently hit the target while your sights are on the target, you're lollipopped. It means that where your sights are aimed is where you're aiming. I hope that made sense. That's what lollipopping is. That and weapons qualifications are the only things we did with M4s, the whole red phase, even though we had them on us the entire time. Okay, so switching gears. I have 4 horror stories to tell. And then at that point, after those 4 horror stories, I think that'll about conclude the basic red phase. Barring any answers to possible questions from the shit that I've said so far. So, the first 2 are going to directly involve me and then another person, whose actual name I forget. I'll go over mine first. Now, I actually can't remember if this happened during red or white phase, because this happened during either week 3 or 4. But I'm gonna put it in the red phase category just in case, because fuck it, why not? So, there was one point in time, I believe at the end of red phase, I think maybe, where for a day I started to feel really bad physically. After another day, I started to feel really bad. I had a bad headache. I didn't have a fever. I know that because I actually had somebody check just kind of feel my forehead. I wasn't burning up at all. Didn't have a fever, but I had a bad headache. My sweat was mostly salty. Keep in mind that this was during the summertime. Remember how I said, that we shipped out for reception for a week in July 1st? So this is like during July. It's hot as fuck. My sweat was mostly salty and less watery. My whole body, like my muscles, my joints, ached. And I had a dry mouth and it was difficult to move. When I say difficult, I don't mean like walking. I don't mean like in terms of, let's like you're walking, like you're wading through water. But like, I was sluggish basically. And I felt like shit all around. Now here's one thing that I haven't mentioned yet. Is that there's this thing called sick call. And what sick call is you go to sick call instead of PT if you feel like shit. Because it's possible to get sick in basic. I mean, it can happen anytime, anywhere, right? So, sick call, you go there in case you have some sort of physical injury or you feel like shit, let's say you're sick or whatever. And then they'll take care of you, and then what typically happens is you'll meet people for breakfast because it won't take that long. You may be wondering yourself, well then couldn't you just use sick call as a way to malinger around PT? No. Reason why no is because the people at sick call will, if you're malingering, they'll find out while you're there, and then they will tell your drill sergeants that you were malingering. And believe me, that would lead to a life of the 7th circle of hell. I never personally experienced it. Nobody in my platoon ever malingered with it because we were told out the gate by the drill sergeants because they told us, I think on day 0 about sick call, and they told us that. They were like, don't fuck with it. So we never got fucked up by it. Anyway, so towards the end of red phase or beginning of white phase, one of the two, I'm going to say end of red phase, I felt so shitty. So I go to sick call. And what they do is, I don't know if it was water or not, but it was some kind of clear liquid. They put it in like an IV bag. They hooked up a needle to the inside of like my left elbow, and then they changed out the IV bag twice. They took it out. They put another IV thing in me, took it out. And then they gave me a tall bottle of Gatorade. I think it was like a fruit punch red Gatorade. I drank that whole fucking thing pretty quickly, actually. And but anyway, but what turned out is that I was dehydrated. And when I say dehydrated, I don't mean just really thirsty. I mean like I was medically dehydrated. One and only time in my life I've ever actually been dehydrated. Haven't been since, not before that either. And that wasn't like irresponsibility on my part or anything like that. You know, the fact that I did get dehydrated, that wasn't irresponsibility on my part, whatever. Because like in basic, during the summer cycle, which is exactly what I was, you know, people getting dehydrated wasn't an uncommon thing, you know. And in fact, like aside from a regular like flu or whatever, dehydration was one of the most common things that they dealt with, you know. But it did give me one great advantage. Now, there was this guy who had glasses. I don't remember his name. But there were a lot of people in my platoon who didn't like him. I don't remember why they didn't like him, but they didn't like him. Oh, no. They perceived him as an asshole. I don't know why. Never found out, never cared to, but they did. Now, the reason I mention him is because so there's this type of Skittles called like they're like the tropical kind of Skittles, the ones that come like in the purple packaging. I love those Skittles, and I got Skittles in my MRE because it took a little bit because the blonde guy, the guy with glasses, he was in my platoon. He was also in the sick call that day. I think he and I were the only ones from our platoon actually that day he went there. I don't know what the fuck was wrong with him. I talked to him about it, but I fucking forget I forget at this point. I don't fucking remember anymore. But anyway, so since our drill sergeants weren't there, we took advantage of the opportunity and we ate everything in our MREs. Because like I said, we weren't allowed to at that point in time. I was like, fuck this, we ate everything. I remember what I had a marble pound cake, which, not gonna lie, it didn't really taste any different from like anything else. Like there were actually there was this Italian MRE that had like these like garlic breadsticks with this weird cheesy shit on it. And not gonna lie, I actually preferred the garlic breadsticks to the marble pound cake. And ironically enough, the garlic breadsticks was something we were allowed to have, and the pound cake was something we weren't allowed. It was just weird to me. But I had the pound cake, and it didn't taste anything special, but it was fucking great just to be able to actually eat the fucking thing. And then I had a package of Skittles, but it was the regular kind of Skittles, you know, the red packaging. So what Glasses Guy does, Glasses Guy, he knows that I like the purple Skittles. Because we were talking about, you know, because we were both like, dude, let's actually eat everything in these fucking MREs, right? He got a dairy powder in his milkshake. Not his milkshake, he got a dairy powder. So he got a fucking milkshake. I didn't get a milkshake. I didn't get anything like that. I got the regular Skittles, like a pound cake. That was it. He got purple tropical Skittles. He gave me his Skittles. I was like, what, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, do you want my Skittles instead? He's like, nah, man, you keep it all, man. You deserve it. I was like, what? I was like, bro, why did people call you an asshole? He was like, you know what, man? Because fuck them. And I was like, all right. He was like, see, man, I can be nice to people. Those pricks think I'm an asshole. Fuck them. And I was like, you know what, man? All right. And the conversation went kind of like that, too. So that's the story of my dehydration, though. That's the end of this video. Next, part 3 will be continuing on from those horror stories as stated before. See you there.